Hello and welcome to Marketing Speak. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It is my pleasure to have Jaimee Maree with us. After a decade of owning her own full-service digital marketing agency, Jaimee Maree realized that nothing in marketing works without great copy, and she decided to go all in on building her own direct response copywriting agency. She officially launched Savvy Copy in 2019, and ever since, she's been helping industry experts, thought leaders, and passionate entrepreneurs to build authority, attract ideal clients, and generate more leads and sales, all through the power of words. Today's Savvy Copy are truly modern-day marketing alchemists who turn traffic into gold. They've worked with names like Sylvester Stallone, Gary Goldstein, the producer of Pretty Woman, Bill Zanker with investors Pitbull and Tony Robbins, Grace Lever, and hundreds of other entrepreneurs, business owners, authors, speakers, and coaches in every niche imaginable, from A-list celebrities to local dentists. Jaimee, it's so great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephan. I've been a huge fan of your work for many, many years, so it's a real honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, it's been an honor and pleasure to be working with you on multiple joint client projects, and you've done a great job and helped my clients get to new heights with their websites. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I'm super grateful to work on so many projects with you and get the clients that we've worked with incredible results. It's been great.
Yeah. So first, if we could start with your story, your origin story. How did you end up doing what you do, and what kind of crazy curveballs were thrown your way while you were in the process of building your business?
Yeah, look, it has been a crazy journey. This story really just comes together in two parts. It started like any typical entrepreneur's story in my bedroom with a laptop I couldn't afford and had to borrow money to buy. It started in 2010. So I attended a Wealth from Marketing event, and it was one of those run to the back of the room type events to sign up to things. And I was in my early 20s at that time, and they were talking about all things make money online. So they were talking about blogging and SEO and affiliate marketing and pay-per-click. And so I just knew that I wanted this, incredible freedom, this working from home, working from beaches kind of lifestyle. And so I signed up to this course and I started to create websites. I started learning about blogging and how to rank them and SEO. And I got really quite good at it. And so I went into different niches and ranked these websites. And then in 2012, I was hit, I think it was about 2012, hit by the Google Penguin update for a lot of those websites. I'm sure you know about that, Stephan. And my business was basically destroyed overnight. I still to this day have no idea what went wrong. But luckily, in about 2011, so it was a couple of months before that happened, I'd come across James Schramko, who we both know really well. And he talked about owning the race course and building your own asset. And so I did that. And I started helping other businesses to do what I was doing and building their websites and SEO. And luckily, none of their businesses were affected. Yeah, then basically I did that for about 7 years. So I ran that agency till I hit burnout in about 2018. And I kind of just got to a point where I knew that I loved digital marketing, but I couldn't scale. I just couldn't step back. I knew that we got great results for clients, but I was an intricate part of it. And no matter how big I built my team, I never just could step back. But about a year later, I'd just come back from an event in Queensland, and I was sitting on my couch. So this is part 2 of the story where Savvy Copy came to be. And I'd just gotten back on the Sunday, and it was about 5:30 Sunday night, and I got an email from a very good friend of mine, Greg Merrilees, who is the founder of Studio One Design, who I also know is a really great friend of yours. And he wrote me this email and he said, "Hi, Miss J, how the heck are you? I need your copywriting chops and I need them by tomorrow. I've just landed a big fish, but only if we can deliver a kick-ass landing page with kick-ass copy by tomorrow." And basically told me that the client was a successful American businessman, Bill Zanker, and he had investors, Pitbull and Tony Robbins. And we basically had to recreate their marketing campaign in 24 hours. And so it was a Sunday night. I poured everything that I knew from all of my experience in digital marketing into the copy that we created. Turned it around in 24 hours, which you should never do copy that quickly, but I didn't have a choice. And I knew that, this was one of the biggest opportunities that I'd ever get to work on a project like this. And it was launched shortly after. And Greg and I jumped on a call with the owner of the business, Bill Zanker. And he said, I've never seen conversions like this in my life. And it was a really pivotal moment for me where I was able to step back and realize that it doesn't matter how successful of an entrepreneur you are, how many hundreds of millions of dollars you've made, if you can't create a campaign that engages with your audience and converts, and your marketing campaigns will fail. They ended up, when they relaunched the work that Greg and I had done, they sold 1,000 memberships in a week. They'd made $500,000. And it just made me realize in that moment that I had to go all in on copy. I realized just how important it was. It enabled me to focus and pour all of my knowledge from marketing into that for my clients moving forward. And I wanted to create an agency that no matter how big or small your business is, there was an agency that you could rely on that could create high quality copy. And so it was not a straight line getting to where I am today. And there's, been a lot of twists and turns, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere else now doing copywriting.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And how big is your agency now, and what does a copy agency look like, compared to a regular digital marketing agency?
Sure. So we've got a team of 15 now. So we're a good sized team. I don't think we'll grow any bigger than this. I love being intimately close with the team and working with them directly. What does it look like? So a copywriting agency, obviously we focus specifically on direct response style copywriting. And while part of our process is to really dive deep into what clients need strategically, and we bring that expertise to our clients to work out, obviously not just what words they need on the page, but what pages do they need in order to convert clients? What journey do we need to take people on a website to get the end result that we ultimately want? How do we replicate their sales process? But, having copy is basically sales in written form. And so our process is really diving deep, understanding our clients' really knowing them intimately, really understanding strategically what they actually want to achieve. We're not order takers to say, hey, I just need this copy for these pages, because it's not necessarily what clients actually need. And so we bring that strategic element. So that's what our copywriting agency looks like. We team up with experts in their field. So we work obviously with you on multiple projects. We've worked with Greg Merrilee from Studio One Design. So we really do follow the entire process from start to finish as much as we can. Yeah, so that's how we work as a copywriting agency.
And let's talk about how this works with Studio One or any design agency. They're doing the design layout. Perhaps they're doing wireframes. I know Studio One goes straight to mock-up, and they don't do wireframes first. But how do you collaborate with a design shop to ensure the best outcome?
Sure. So when it comes to Studio One Design specifically, and we can do this with really any design agency, but we work so closely with them because they're incredible at what they do. But basically, Greg and I typically, sometimes Greg will do this depending if he's led work our way, but we do look at things from a very high level and we look at things strategically. So we go through that process to really understand, as I said before, what the client needs and talk, obviously about their marketing in general, come up with a plan, come up with the pages that they need in order to make that happen. And then basically, when we work with design teams, I'll often come up with the look and the feel of the page. They can create a general structure of what the page needs to look like. But when it comes to copywriting, we're really big on not following a templated design, or we need to really understand the client and figure out, what does this client need? What structure do they need on the page? What does their top hero section need to look like? What authority do we need to get across? So we always say that copy leads design. It doesn't mean that design can't be worked on first and come up with that look and feel. But yeah, we don't typically follow a structure from a design company and say, hey, just fill in the gaps with copy, because often design companies don't actually have any idea about how to craft copy that will actually convert. And so this is where I think a lot of businesses unfortunately fall short, because they know they need web designers often, but web designers, Greg from Studio One Design certainly does, but other design agencies, they just don't really know about flow and structure and how to create a website. So we will come up with the copy and the flow and everything that needs to go on the page. And then we present that to the design team. So again, it's different with Studio One Design just because they've got so much marketing knowledge, but we then work together collaboratively to make sure that the story is told how it's supposed to be with the design from what we set out to create with the copy.
Right. So you're determining how many calls to action to have on the page, where to place them, what sort of journey to take the reader through or the visitor through, and then what sort of story you're telling and how that's going to play out in terms of design elements. And then the design agency takes it from there, and then you review the mock-ups and give any feedback after they've applied what you've come up with.
Absolutely, yeah. And everything's always unique to each individual client. We obviously have frameworks and principles that we always follow, but yeah, we tailor everything on every page of a site depending on who the client is, who their clients or their customers are, whether they're going to like short copy or long copy, or, you know, what we feel that the client needs. Yeah, we tailor all of the call to actions, how many are needed, what are needed, what's the journey that we need to take people on the site in order to reach the ultimate goal that the client wants.
Yeah. And it's not really about short copy or long copy. It's about the journey and building rapport, relatedness, helping the client to feel comfortable working with you. I know the story brand framework is something that you, SB7, is something that you like, as do I, and having that inside scoop on what the internal problem is for that visitor and working that into the copy and all the different design elements is crucially important to build that rapport and relatedness, to convey empathy and authority. So let's actually talk a little bit about story brand. What is it about story brand that you like? How do you utilize it? You know, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, sure. So we use 3 books that really influence all of the copywriting that we do. We draw inspiration from lots of different places, one being spin selling, one being influence, and one being building a story brand. So building a story brand, the reason why I love it so much is because it really does talk so much about story and how to really create a story that represents your brand, that takes into consideration so many different elements of what people need to actually be engaged with and influenced by. And it really talks about, you know, how even we're captured by movies and the storylines that exist in movies, and that there's always a hero and a guide and a villain, and that they experience problems and challenges and they almost hit failure, but then all of a sudden they have success. And when you take that and you understand that we are always enthralled by movies and stories, no matter how they're told, and then figure out how to actually apply this to business and creating your own brand and your own story, it just links together beautifully from a marketing perspective, and creates a real overarching story that you can use in all of your website and your videos. And you know, and you understand your customer and your client is the hero, and you are their guide, and you keep that in mind all the time with everything that you create. So I think when you can distill it down to the SB7 framework, and you really understand who it is that you're talking to and what is going on for them, and their internal and the external challenges that they're having, and that you can apply this to absolutely any type of business. I know Story Brand brings up a story about a house painter and an example of how you can use Story Brand for them, and you think, do I need to make a story about painting a house? Well, the fact is that you actually do, or if you do, your marketing will be far more compelling. And I know that when we've worked together and clients have gone through your process of creating a brand script and that SP7 framework, it is an absolute honor and pleasure to work with you on clients like this, because when you do that work and you really understand the depth of their story and that villain, it has a huge, huge impact on the copy that we're able to create and the story that we're able to create. And at the end of the day, it ends up in more conversions. I mean, you had Brandon Yosha on a few weeks ago and talked about, you know, the success that he's had since he's launched his new website. From my understanding, is almost 10x, like his business and the leads and the clients that he's generating. And when we went through that process, and you created that brand script, and then we turned it into conversion focused copy, it was beautiful. So that's what I really love about the framework that it gives, and when you take the time to do it, the impact that it has at the end of the day.
Yeah, we'll move on to spin selling and influence in a few minutes, but I want to unpack this a little bit more about story brand. So one of the key precepts of story brand, and the book Building a Story Brand is by Donald Miller. He's also the creator of the framework. One of the key premises here is that to have a good story, you need a hero, and you need a guide and you need a villain, and there needs to be some sort of struggle and a story arc to it. Many websites, most I would say, don't have a villain. So that's crazy to me. Like, what kind of story is compelling if it doesn't have a villain? It doesn't have to be a human, it doesn't have to be a corporate entity. It could be a concept like planned obsolescence. If you're selling, let's say, used computers or refurbished computers, planned obsolescence is a great shared enemy to get everyone riled up about. It stinks that you have to keep buying a new iPhone and a new laptop every couple years. And it just seems like nobody is addressing this. It's like, okay, more garbage for the landfill, more pillaging of the ground and the rare earth minerals and everything to build more and more laptops, and less compatibility and sustainability and long-term viability of these machines. So anyways, that's something that helps people to rally around something they care about. That also relates to something else that we haven't talked about yet with the story brand framework, and that is the philosophical problem. You have an internal problem, which is, the way I would frame it is, it's the unspoken problem. You're fine talking about, let's say that you have stomach issue, but you're not so fine talking about the gas. That's something that's unspoken, right? I'm not going to like bring that up in polite conversation or even with my best friend. So therefore, you're getting closer to building relatability and relatedness if you can talk with the visitor about how embarrassing this is. Like, oh, okay, yeah, this person gets my world. Wow, okay, cool. I appreciate that. Well, what if you talk about at another deeper level, the philosophical problem? Like, everybody is so focused on the symptoms, the pills or the potions or whatever to address the symptoms. What about the root cause? It drives me bonkers that nobody's addressing the root cause. They're just ameliorating the symptoms. It seems unjust. It feels like it's disease maintenance or sick care instead of health care. And people will rally around that as well. It's a little different from a villain, but it's really something to rally around. And so that kind of process of fleshing out all these different aspects of the story brand framework and as a brand script is a very powerful process, one that most clients that I work with have never done anything like this before. And then you hand that over to your agency or to Studio One or any design agency or to any paid media company or agency or anybody who's a contractor or marketing professional working with the client. And it's a breath of fresh air. They're now able to really get into the world of the visitor, the prospect, and speak to them in a way that really builds that rapport and empathy. It's beautiful. So any thing that you want to add to that? Anything in particular that has been really profound or helpful as you work with brand scripts to turn that into the copy for a website?
Look, I mean, outside of just giving the framework and covering off the most important things that we feel in order to really understand the customer and the client, what is going on from them, whether it is a philosophical, internal, external problems, being able to really, it's just such a beautiful framework that we can really build upon. So there's not too much really to add there, but agreed, when you can understand the story, you have that empathy, you can build in authority, you've got a plan. There's not too much to add there, but just that the structure creates something incredibly powerful no matter what marketing you're doing. And we love to follow it as much as we can.
So what's the difference in terms of copy, just like headlines or little snippets of a company that's focused on themselves, and thus it's them being the hero, most company websites on the internet, versus a guide where the hero is the visitor and they're just the resource, like Obi-Wan Kenobi to Luke Skywalker, and they're not Luke Skywalker. They're smart enough to recognize that there's only room for one hero, and that's the customer, that's the prospect. So what would be some copy snippets would convey both approaches?
Yeah. So I think a lot of what is out there is with companies is creating a lot of like feature driven headlines, and headlines that are about them and what they do, versus taking a more story brand approach where we're really looking at what does the visitor need to read? What benefit driven copy do we want to include here? What is it that when they arrive on this website, the headline needs to be about what's in it for me. What like impact can you have on me? What is the benefit to me of being here? And again, so a lot of it is people have, we do this, or our business helps our clients do this, versus copy that uses you and your language. It's one of the biggest like lowest hanging fruit that businesses have to change this kind of language, to not make it about the company themselves, but about the visitor. What is it that they need? What benefit can you provide to them? What pain problem can you help them solve? So when it looks at like story brand, it's imagining everything about them, making them the hero, making your entire site about how you can serve them and how you can guide them. And it's not about you. And it's really just about creating that connection, being authentic, and showing how you can serve.
Yeah. So let's come up with an example for it, so it's really tangible for our listener. So let's do a client example here. Let me think of one. Okay. So this is the framework that I'm going to use. It's not story brand, but it's just for headlines, and it's from Clay Hebert, and it's verb your noun. So something, your something. Let's say, for example, it's a mortgage broker. And finance your dream would be dropping in the verb and then the noun and the word your. So that's finance your dream, very focused on the visitor. And so I would call that more of the second approach, which is they're the hero and you're the guide. What would be a kind of the opposite approach of their hello visitor, let me tell you all about me, is we're amazing, and you know, we've been in business X number of years. We're the leading authority in mortgages in the entire tri-state area or whatever, right? So that's very much all about me. So I'm sure you've come across many cases where the site is written and designed that way. Have you ever had any, actually, that's an interesting question. Have you ever had any situations where the client or the prospect has been out of shape because they want to be the hero, and you're telling them that nobody really cares? They need to care about them. Like you need to care about the visitor more than yourself. And then they get ticked off and leave.
Look, absolutely. I don't know that they've ever been ticked off to leave, but there was a lot of heavy lifting that needed to be done, because they really felt that if they just put themselves forward as the authority and the best in the industry, and that's all that they communicated, then the right people would be attracted to them. They'd see them as the authority, and they actually really felt that speaking the other way was salesy, and was that if they just put themselves forward, and it took quite a lot of twisting their arm in order to really get them to understand our perspective and why it was really so important. But yes, I have faced it before, not very often. I do find that people usually take our advice and our guidance, but yes, some just really feel that if they show that they're the best in the industry, then people will want to sign up with them. But it really doesn't work that way. And it's far more powerful.
It backfires.
It does. Absolutely, it backfires. It does for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to spin selling.
Yes.
You know, there's a book by that title, and spin it's an acronym, stands for something. So why don't you walk through a little bit about that approach and why that appeals to you, how it kind of augments story brand.
Sure. So spin selling, it was actually a book that James Shamker introduced to me many, many years ago. And it's by Neil Rackham, and it was based on 35,000 sales conversations. And it was really distilled down to how to really like move someone to realizing that your service is what they actually need. And so spin stands for situation, problem, implication, and needs payoff. And so needs payoff really is about the solution. And so what it does, and when you really combine this with building a story brand book, it's similar in the way that what Spin is trying to really understand is what is the situation that your ideal client is in right now. So when they're at home at the dinner table and they're having conversations with their partner about what's going on, what is their situation right now? What is going on for them? Where are the goals and the aspirations of what they want? And so it's really identifying what is that situation that they're in. Then we move on to problem. And so obviously that's pretty clear. What problems are they experiencing? And again, this is internal, external, philosophical problems that they've got. And understanding your client's problems is by far the most important thing when it comes to copywriting and marketing, and I would say business in general. Everyone buys painkillers, and nowhere near enough people buy, vitamins, because they just want their problem solved, right? And so as soon as they've got a problem, that's when they'll actually pay money because they want it solved. So that's when deeply understanding the problem is really important. And then we move on to implication. And I think this is something that is really, really overlooked from a sales perspective, but also from a copywriting perspective. And it is really about like, what are the implications that someone is going to experience if they don't take a particular action? So really understanding what the implications are if someone doesn't do their SEO right, or if they don't get their website designed, or if they don't get copywriting done. If you really actually truly understand the implications of that and communicate that to the audience, that's the thing that's actually the stab in the gut that will actually move someone to take action. And it comes up in building a story brand as well. There was something that he referenced, a study in 1979, where they were able to determine that someone will far more worried about losing $1,000 than they will be about making $1,000. And so everyone always wants to avoid the pain. And so when you can communicate to your audience the implications of not taking action, and then they realize, oh, if I don't take action. So from a copywriting perspective, if you don't get it done right, you won't necessarily have the impact that you set out to create, because you won't convert as many leads and clients. You won't necessarily create the freedom that you want in your business necessarily, because you haven't been able to get your marketing to be successful. So when you start to just tie, like, what is that impact? What is that stab in the gut that if you don't take an action that you'll experience? It's incredibly powerful. And I think a lot from a sales and from a copywriting perspective, leave it out. It doesn't need to be really full on in your face, but that's the eye there. And then it is positioning the solution to the problem at the end there, which is you and what you've got to offer. So we take people on a journey, very much like StoryBrand, and we design, the frameworks for everything that we do on a website to go, what's the situation that the client's in? What are the problems they're experiencing? And that's the flow that happens on a website. What are the implications? And then what's your solution? So that's, basically summary of spin selling.
So what would be the implications that you bring forward? And let's take your own website, savvycopy.com, and the homepage, which is a very long page of copy.
It certainly is, yes.
How many words? Like thousands of words.
It would be thousands. It would probably be about 2,500 to 3,000 words, yes.
Yeah, that's pretty long homepage. A lot of scrolling.
It is indeed.
It is. It's a really compelling page.
There was a method to my madness, I promise.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it works. It was very well done. So what would be the implications to a visitor who's interested in copy services if they don't hire a savvy copy?
Absolutely. So, our website is a perfect example. You'll be able to see us using this process. And in part of the website, further down the page, we basically have a section where just above, we've indicated all the problems that exist and the problems that people have with hiring a copywriter or, staring at a blank screen and not being able to write themselves. And then it actually moves into a section, and I'll quickly read it if you don't mind, Stephan, because it might give a little bit of context here. But after all of those problems, we say, but here's the real kicker. What will happen if you choose to keep living life in scenario 1, which was all of the problems we outlined, leaving the fate of your business in the hands of subpar copy? And then it says that life-changing coaching program you have to offer won't go changing lives in the way you planned, including yours. The online course you put your everything into to leverage your genius zone will get buried among the thousands of other courses. That must-have service you deliver will only get found by a fraction of the ready-to-buy clients and customers who desperately need it. That killer e-commerce product you spent years brainstorming and manufacturing will sit unsold on digital shelves. That business you started to create more freedom, impact more lives, and build your legacy won't deliver the success and lifestyle you crave and deserve. These are just some of the business limiting outcomes we help prevent so our clients can reach their goals no matter how big they are. So yeah, I mean, that's really for us, just this short section of really communicating, like if you do not get your copy right, then there will be implications of it and the impact it'll actually have on your marketing. Now, we do weave them through the page as well. So we have elements of that page. Actually, early on is more inspired by Story Brand, where we will talk about wasting precious marketing dollars if you don't get your copy right. So we do weave it throughout the page, but that's more of our much higher level stab in the gut part of our website, which really, and I wholeheartedly obviously believe, and this is why I started the copywriting agency, that if you don't get your copy right, it actually has such a huge impact on everything else and how many people you're able to reach and impact and how big you can grow your business. So yeah, that's the I in spin selling in action.
I love it.
Yeah.
Reminds me of some sage advice I got from, actually it was my wife, Orion, who got it from Anil Gupta, who was a guest on my other podcast on Get Yourself Optimized. And this is many, many, many years ago, maybe even a decade ago. He told her she was, I don't know, like transitioning what she was doing and the kinds of clients she was going to serve or something, I forget. But she hadn't really gone fully into it yet. And he said something that really was the punch in the gut. He said, the longer you take to launch this thing, the more people are dying, like literally dying, because you could have saved their life.
Wow.
You're like, whoa.
Yes, isn't that the punch in the gut if I've ever heard one. But he was right. I mean, I know the work that Orion does, and so I know how impactful it is. And sometimes like people need her, and so she doesn't put herself out there in the world and do that, then it has an impact for sure.
Yeah, the implications are severe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the karma,
Mm-hmm.
if this is just generally the case, I think if you're not willing to take up space in the world, if you're trying so hard to be liked and not to be disliked, to not create polarity in people, if you're not willing to be polarizing, then, okay, you're not going to create many enemies probably, but you are also not going to have the impact, and thus people are dying. Yep. And you get to accumulate that negative karma from not stepping up and making a difference for people like you were supposed to.
Absolutely. That's definitely a big implication for sure.
Yeah. Let's move on to influence. So I've had Dr. Robert Cialdini, Bob, on the podcast here. He's phenomenal. He's brilliant and really inspiring. I find that some people take his work, his life's work, and they apply it to manipulate and get unfair advantage to sell stuff that people don't really want. Trick them really into buying something they don't really need. So I would love to hear your take on influence as a book applied in the right way and applied in a more devious and nefarious way.
Yes. Oh, look, we always say that we can use our superpowers for good or evil. And we make it very clear on our site that we do not work, with people who want to do that, because I agree. I mean, we take on these elements that I'll have to call him Robert Cialdini. I know you can call him Bob because you're friends, but yeah, we take that on and we take that responsibility very seriously and about who we work with, because we definitely don't want it to be used for evil. So when using it for good, Robert breaks down in his book Influence, there's 7 principles that he's got. It started with 6, but recently he's included a 7th. And basically it just looks at what is really required in order to have influence over someone else and have that influence in order to take action. Well, that's certainly how we utilize it now in copywriting. And so the 7 principles that we always follow And hopefully I'll remember all of these. But the first one is social proof. And so that's really about the fact that we often follow what our peers do. And so when we can actually have social proof on our website through the thing of testimonials or case studies, then people will more likely to be influenced when we can include as much social proof as possible. So this is a really important part of influence and the copywriting that we create. Then there's reciprocity. So that is really about, we feel almost indebted when someone has done something for us, then we almost feel it's just a human trait for us to feel indebted to them in return. So we obviously always want to do this in the right way, but this is where we really talk about the value of creating valuable content for our audience and giving value before you expect something in return. And so that's really the reciprocity principle when we talk about creating lead magnets, or we create about content marketing and blogs, and always putting things forward from a value perspective. So that's what we always encourage our clients to do when we talk through that. What value are you going to provide? And even the copywriting that we do on the site, we're still trying to educate. We're still trying to make sure that they leave with that value. Then there's obviously authority. So we trust authority figures, typically. And so the more authority that you can communicate to your audience, and never in your face way. So as we spoke about before, you don't want the website to be all about you and everything and all of your accolades, but it still can make a huge difference to put your authority forward, to talk about the impact metrics that you have achieved, potentially logos of media that you've been featured in. And these can be financial impact metrics. They can be, number of clients that you've had, the money that you've made your clients, the money that you've saved your clients. We find it's very, very important to communicate. So whenever we write copy, certainly within the hero section of the page, we always try and get across these impact metrics to showcase to people you're in a safe place here. This person is an expert. They're an authority. We're trying to position you as an industry leader. So that is that element of influence. What else is on the list? We've got scarcity is also on the list. So we often typically value what is scarce. So wherever possible. Now, sometimes this can be used very differently depending on if it's a sales page. It's a little bit more in your face often then. But this can be, scarcity of the number of people that can be in a program. It can be a scarcity as to when an offer is going to end. There are lots of different ways that you can create scarcity in your copywriting, and it's very, very powerful in order to do that, because people never want to miss out on anything. So people get FOMO and don't want to miss out. So we use that, and it always, always, always needs to be real scarcity, and that's something that I always communicate to people. Don't lose your integrity by just having fake scarcity. And people have fake scarcity all the time, and it really annoys me because I think that'll do a lot of damage.
So what's an example of fake scarcity?
Well, I think people are saying that there's only a certain number of people, but it's an online program, so they're not limited to the number of people that can actually sign up. So, or anyone giving an indication that there's only 10 spots left when there's actually 500. It's just not putting something in that's just not realistic and not honest. I see the value of using things like countdown clocks and things in your marketing, and there's always value in that. But sometimes that, to me, can err on the side of being a little bit of fake scarcity. I mean, it has its value, but I think you have to be very careful as to how you use it, any wording that you've actually got around it, not to say that as soon as this, counter times down to 0, you'll never, ever have this opportunity to ever do this again unless you copy the URL into a private browser and then you've got another 10 minutes until it expires. So yeah, that to me can just, err on this doesn't feel so great. That's an example of scarcity there. Then the other principles we've got there are liking. So this is more about the more that someone likes you, the more likely it is that you will buy from them. So this is why it's so important with all the things that we've talked about, is to understand your client, understand the problems that they're facing, show empathy, be authentic, because the more that you can build that know, like, trust factor, it's one of the elements that will influence someone to take an action. So that's the liking principle. There is commitment.
By the way, about liking, I learned this recently from Robert. He presented at Genius Network, which I'm a part of, and he talked about how just putting a smile kind of curve on a product packaging would increase sales. Didn't even
Wow.
have to look like a real smile. It just had
Uh-huh.
the curve, the angle of a smile. And then they tested, of course, flattening it so
Mhm.
that they could have legitimate
Yep.
scientific
Split test.
testing here, and then a frown, kind of the upside
Yep.
down
Mhm.
curve. And
Yeah.
sure enough, the smile always won, and the frown always did the worst.
That is so interesting that it can come down to that. And that, I mean, in a website would be represented by the images that you use. I mean, being on there, being welcoming, having a smile. That's why it's so important to use your own photos on your website, wherever appropriate, obviously. But that's so interesting. I love hearing that, yeah, maybe we just all need to put smiley faces on our website and see what happens, do a split test and see what happens.
Yeah.
That's really good to know. Okay, awesome. Then, there's commitment and consistency, which I think is pretty self-explanatory, but humans have a need to be consistent. And they need to see consistency in everything to really to feel safe. And so that's why this is a little bit more, I would say, sometimes when it comes to branding and design, really, really important. It's obviously important in copy as well, but that's why they often say, like, you really need to make sure that your website matches your socials, and people need to feel that consistency between everything that you do. And again, you need to be consistent in the words that you write as well. And then finally, which is the new one, which is unity. And so that is really about having a shared identity that then influences people. So this is why in copywriting, whenever we try to tell a story, or whenever our client was our ideal client, and we always try and like weave their story that, we were once in your position, and so that people have that affinity with that person and shares that sort of unity, has that sort of shared unity. But this can be to do with lots of different things of nationality, family, race, lots of things, that it will have influence over someone if they have a shared identity with the person that they're wanting to buy from, or
Right.
wanting to engage.
So, for example, having gone to the same university, or
Yes.
even just both being time strapped, or having a shared deadline. It's like the most
Yes.
tenuous kind of connections can build that unity, and get somebody to be more willing to help you out.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we basically always use our superpowers for good, but they're the 7 principles that we will always try and implement onto someone's website. And you can see really actually, how impactful all of those things will be. And you can almost take them for granted. But when you know that these are actually the 7 that will influence human behavior, you can see when used in your marketing, like it's going to have a good impact.
So how do you convey liking in your copy on your homepage?
So I think that liking really comes down to quite a few different things about how to actually get that across. And I feel that we do it in lots of different ways, obviously through the imagery that we use, but we use words that we try to be as conversational as possible. We try and use humor as much as possible on the site. And I really feel that the liking principle also, when you're able to use the spin selling formula or building a story brand, is that you build that liking feeling and trust feeling when you identify straight away on your site the situation that they're in, and you have empathy for that, and you talk to that, and you're like, you know what, I know, like, you're incredible at what you do, you're an authority at what you do, you've created a service or a product that's damn right amazing, but when the rest of the world doesn't know that, then that's really hard. And so that's how we communicate it to our audience, because we see so many incredible businesses doing incredible things, but their marketing and their messaging is terrible. And so that's how I feel we really use it, because we empathize with them. We talk about their situation. We go, we are on your side. We have your back. When we combine your superpowers with ours, like, we're going to create magic. And so we really make it feel like a team, because that's what we are. And so that's how I feel the liking principle is how we do it on our website. We use video as well on there. There's several videos on the site of me, and hopefully all of those things together help people like me that little bit more.
Yeah, and the imagery is playful, and a little example of that is you doing the mic drop thing with an actual microphone. That's fun. Right?
Yeah, that was incredible. The photographer, Louise, was amazing, who came up with that when we wrote the copy. And I get comments on it all the time. Between that and the throwing of, paper in the bin, which is what most people, when they write, they just want to throw their copy in the bin. They're the two images that I always get comments on from people. And so that is what helps boost that liking principle.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you clearly know your stuff. That's impressive. I wanted to ask a little bit about the differences between a regular copywriter and a sales copywriter, because what you pay for a regular copywriter is much less than what you would pay for a very gifted sales copywriter.
Yes. So, there are actually multiple types of copywriting. And so the first thing is obviously figuring out what it is that you actually need to determine whether you need content writing. So that's more like informational blogs and articles and things like that. Then you've got SEO copywriting, which is really, as the name suggests, around search engine optimization and trying to rank higher in Google. You've got branded copywriting, which is typically like one-liner catchy slogans like Nike's Just Do It. And then you've got direct response style copywriting. Now, the thing that I find, which absolutely blows my mind to this day, and is that a lot of copywriters really aren't marketers, or they really don't actually understand marketing. And you'd think you'd have to know this, right? So I think when it comes to like regular copywriters or really skilled direct response copywriters, it is really direct response copywriters are designed to move people to action. They're designed to help people to feel, to think, to respond. And it's as close to the action you want them to take as possible. So a regular copywriter often will potentially write content, but they don't have a lot of the, the psychology, the sales skills. They don't do the research. And the words that you see at the end of the day, truthfully, are only a fraction of what goes into actually creating copy. And so I feel like a regular copywriter will often write words without this real deep knowledge and understanding of sales and psychology and all of the things that we've spoken about before. And so a lot goes into direct response copywriting, and certainly the copywriting that we do. So I really think the difference is there of the content that they create. Is it informational, or is it actually going to move someone to action? And to actually move someone to action, to press a button, to sign up to something, to open their wallets to do something, it is a real art form. So I guess, that's really the difference in regular copywriters to I guess what we do.
Yeah. Are you worried that ChatGPT is going to get really good at sales copywriting?
Look, it's always something that we're trying to have on our radar, and we look into it a lot. Look, where it is right now, absolutely not. I think that it's got a place. I think from what we're really seeing at the moment is it draws a lot of information from the internet, but it's not a human. It can't feel, it can't empathize. It doesn't really do the deep research on an individual client about what makes them different, about what is unique to them. It doesn't put in the humor or the fun of the client. It doesn't create that brand voice. And so, look, I'm really interested to see if it does. I mean, I think what's really interesting is that everything that I see ChatGPT churn out, it's like, that's great, like information, and sure, that's, interesting, but it doesn't take someone on a journey. It doesn't follow the formulas that we certainly, take people on when they start at a website. They go down the page, we want to move them to the next page. It just isn't able to do that. And so I feel like people are thinking, I'm going to save some money by doing this, but they are losing a lot of money by doing it, in my opinion, because it's not where it needs to be. Could it get there? I don't know. I mean, maybe if, we're brain dumping all of the, our sales knowledge and skills into what creates it. But at this point in time, absolutely not. It can be helpful from a research perspective. It can be helpful to churn out ideas and to speed things up. But when it comes to conversions and getting people to open their wallets, you're fighting with so many other marketing messages that are coming at people day in, day out. And so if you try and shortcut and use messaging from AI, and you'll lose people instantly. We're always looking into it, and it's very interesting what's coming out. But at this point in time, I'm certainly, there's ways to use it, but not to take over for sales, conversion focused copywriters.
Yeah. Yeah. Who are the copywriting legends that you have gotten inspired by or learned from? Maybe like Gary Halbert, Bob Bly, David Ogilvy, Gene Schwartz, Jay Abraham.
Look, this is such an interesting question because my journey into copywriting was quite different to a lot. I never really started out to be a copywriter. It came from years of marketing knowledge. I drew inspiration from lots of different copywriters for sure. Andre Chaperone is actually one of my favorite copywriters. Learned a lot from Jay Abraham as well. But I actually feel that with what I've created with Savvy Copy is that we are inspired and we learn from copywriters, but we actually learn and inspired by marketers first and foremost, and psychologists and business people, and sort of combining everything that we've learned from lots of different sources, and now training my team who are incredible writers. But now we actually combine like marketing with writers. So we are inspired by them and we've learned a lot from them. Again, Andre Chaperone is incredible at what he does. And I love his work. And obviously Gary
He's
Halbert,
a great human too. He's become a friend. I've had him on the podcast here. And yeah, I was in a mastermind with him for a while, just a virtual one for, this was ages ago, but yeah, he's a great guy.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Your network, Stephan. I would love to be BFFs with him. But yeah, I think whenever I'm asked this question, it's so interesting because I feel like we fell into copywriting because we saw such a huge need in the market for it as well. But then with what we learned and what we infuse into everything that we do now is not really coming from one source. It is coming from multiple, from books, from psychologists, from all of that. And, you know, it's proving to work really well for our clients. We get incredible results. So yeah, it's always a question that I'm asked, and it's not quite as straightforward as having that one person.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. Understood. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So if our listener is inspired to work with you, how do they get in touch?
Sure.
And where do they learn from you too, if they're interested in upping their own copywriting skills?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, you can find us at savvycopy.com with 2 V's there for Savvy. Look, on our site, there's a couple of ways to learn more from us. Obviously, we have a downloadable lead magnet that you will find, but we also, at this point in time, do offer like free reviews of copy as well for people and you know, for your podcast listeners, Stephan, if they feel like, you know, I don't know, is my copy any good? What could be improved? And so that's something that you can certainly find on our website as well. And we do have a blog there as well. We are working on a lot more content marketing at the moment, but that's how you can find us.
Yep. And they can also click on the big blue button on your homepage that says, I need copy that converts.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, exactly. You can always schedule a call and we can jump on and strategize about, your copy. And so, super easy to find.
Yeah. And I love how it's in first person, which is best practice for button verbiage. Instead of you, it's I. And that's what they're saying in their head as they're clicking on that button or thinking about clicking on that button. And, you know, it's these little details that make all the difference added up.
Yep, absolutely do. It makes a huge difference.
Well, Jaimee, it was so fun and informative and inspiring. Yeah, thanks again for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stephan, for having me again. It's an absolute pleasure. One thing I didn't mention is how I came across Stephan. I have this book, this thick. I saw you at an event at James.
1,000-page.
Do you know what? Exactly. I got this book for free at the event, but it cost me, I think, $80 in excess baggage to get it home. But look, I've been following your work for a long time. This was an event in 2019, but I'm super honored to be here and to work on so many projects with you. So thanks so much for having me. I hope it's been of value to your audience.
Yes, it has. And thank you, listener. Awesome. You too are of value. So please do something that spreads your light in the world, and we'll catch you in the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.